People have different sex and love languages. God bless you for the sex words. Thank you very much. I need a sex language, please. I want to teach you a sex language so that we can all have a great sex life in Christ God. Fans are shocked by how much Joni Lamb's life has changed. After years of becoming known in Christian TV for showing a strong, faith-driven family, everything has changed all of a sudden. When it comes to service, Joni is known for always being on Daystar. She is having a very personal problem right now. People always thought she and her husband were unbeatable, but when they weren't together, things were getting worse. The truth is out now. Joni Lamb's life has taken a sad and unexpected turn. She finally spoke out because she knew the sad truth about what had happened. What did happen, and how does it affect her after this? Stay tuned as we reveal the shocking truth about Joni Lamb's life-changing finding, the rumors, the guesses, and the issues in her marriage to Doug Weiss. It was a long time ago that people thought Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss's marriage was in trouble. The first reports were small and came from people who knew what was going on and had seen small changes in how they worked together. It became clear that they were dating as time went on, since they didn't post anything on social media and seemed more and more upset in public. A lot of people thought the wedding looked like something from a fairy tale. Doug Weiss is a well-known Christian psychologist who Joni fell in love with again after Marcus Lamb died. A lot of people saw their relationship as a story of faith healing and starting over, but there were cracks appearing behind the scenes. Other people saw Doug and Joni together less and less at events where he would usually be with her. When they were out in public together, they didn't seem to have the same spark. It was clear from the sideways look, the tight smile, and the space between them that wasn't there before. At first, fans laughed it off. Every marriage has good and bad times, but the news kept getting worse. Some people who knew Doug well said that the stress of being well known was making him feel bad. He was a well-known counselor who had helped couples work through tough relationship problems for years. But Christian TV was a whole new world for him. Everyone kept an eye on him because he was married to Joni Lamb. His past was always being looked at, and he knew that any mistake he made could become news. Some people thought that all of his worry was weakening him and making his relationship with Joni worse. The stories got even stranger after that. People said Doug was in trouble with the cops. A lot of people thought that he had money problems in the past. It might have had something to do with his coaching business, but there was no proof. Someone said that he had been in court over business deals, and someone else said his name came up in investigations that were still going on. It was a bad sign that these stories were going around. Even though no one knew for sure, Joni just found out something that makes her question everything. Did she know this before they got married? People also thought that Joni and Doug had very different ideas about how to carry on their church work. Joni had built Daystar her whole life and made sure that Marcus's legacy would live on, but some people said Doug had his own ideas about how things should be done, which made things very tense between them. Some people even thought Doug might have wanted a bigger role in the network, but Joni didn't want to make any big changes. Could this have been the point where they split up? Everyone couldn't give an answer. They could only guess. More and more people began to wonder what was going on as the weeks went by. Fans who used to think that Joni and Doug's marriage was strong were now not so sure. Were things not going well between them when they weren't together? Was Doug trying to hide something? How long had this been going on was the most important question. Things got worse because Joni and Doug didn't say anything about these rumors. Since neither of them said anything about the reports, a lot of people thought they were true. They should really just come forward and clear things up if everything was okay, right? People had more questions than ever because they didn't answer. News spread that Joni and Doug had been living apart for a while, which was a big surprise. Friends and family said that Doug had quietly moved out of the house they shared, and Joni had been busy with work and hadn't paid attention to any questions about her personal life. It wasn't clear when this began. Their marriage had been in trouble for a lot longer than anyone thought. Fans who liked their love story were upset and confused after this. How did a great marriage turn into a friendship with lots of questions and space? What was really going on here? it looked like these two were becoming less close. One thing was clear, this was no longer just a story. The truth was still a secret for now. Doug Weiss and Joni Lamb were seeing each other, and soon the truth would come out. Joni told me about the sexual texts again, but this time she played them down. You were glad when she told you he was sending you a text. I couldn't handle it. What about the sexual texts? What would he do to us? I don't want to say that we talked about sex. Some people think we talked about having sex, but he never did. He never said anything bad. We didn't have sex before we got married. He is known for being honest. It's only talk about women. But that's not it. When she talks about it, I don't tell anyone. My level of worry is going up because things aren't going well for me. Things are starting to happen in my body. I had my first fear attack at that time. A lot of things were said when you got the text. From the other side, Rachel and Beck asked what's going on. I told them I'm not going to tell them anything about that. After Jimmy came into the picture, she only trusted him until all 6 of us met Jimmy Evans. I called Jimmy by myself because I didn't want to make her feel bad or tell her other kids about it. We talked about this on the phone the day before the meeting. Hey, I don't know how to deal with this, I stated. Could you help me figure it out? Is this okay? How do I move on after the divorce? How people reacted, the pain and the shock. People who, like Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss, were shocked when they said they were splitting up. It was clear to see how strong and loyal they were together a few months ago. It showed that love can grow after loss. Now, though, that carefully put together picture had come apart, leaving behind unanswered questions, chaos, and sadness. Joni was sad about more than just the end of her marriage when she got divorced. It meant the end of a future she was looking forward to. She told a lot of people about her love story because she believed that after Marcus Lamb died, God had given her another chance to be happy. She had to face the sad truth, though. The thing she thought would last forever ended much faster than she thought it would. Johnny was very sad when she was by herself. As a child, she faked a strong faith for many years, but now she had to deal with something very personal in the most public way possible. There was a close look at every part of her life. People paid close attention to her every move and thought about everything she said and did. She couldn't hide from everyone while she was sad, but Doug had a hard time. As a marriage counselor, he was now getting a lot of bad news. For decades, he taught partners how to keep their relationships healthy, so how could he not be able to save his own? It was funny to see how ironic things were, and Doug knew it. People thought he wasn't as reliable as they thought he was when it came to making friends. Jen's children, who had been happy to have Doug join their family, said they didn't understand what had happened when asked how they felt. After Marcus's death, they thought it would be good for their mother to get married again, so they agreed with her. Now they felt like they had to protect her from the criticism and abuse that was coming from everyone. The fact that she had to go through another split in public made people hate her even more. Doug's close friends were also split up. Some people believed that the public had been too mean to him. Many things can cause a marriage to end, and they said that no one should know what really happened between him and Joni. Some people thought the story had more to it, like tense moments, fights that weren't being talked about, and secrets that hadn't been told yet. The news didn't take the time to break down what happened. Some Christian news sites felt bad for both Joni and Doug and offered prayers and words of support. They thought that their breakup was a sad truth of life. Not everyone was ready to forget. What went wrong was talked about in the news, and some sources said that Joni was shocked by the split. Some people said Doug had been having issues behind the scenes for a while and that their public life was making their relationship tough. Then there were the thoughts. Some people thought Doug had been ready to leave the marriage for months but hadn't said anything because he didn't want to make anyone mad. Some people thought Joni had found something she couldn't ignore, something that made her have to leave even though it was hard. A lot of people thought that the breakup had been planned for a long time, even before anyone knew about it. People said they were getting ready for this moment in silence. Joni stayed calm in public the whole time. She talked slowly about trusting God's plan and kept her attention on her job. They were very interested, and she didn't want them to see how hard things were for her, but she was sad when no one was around. It's tough to end a marriage alone, but it's really tough when everyone is looking. Doug tried to hide too, but it was hard. Most Christians don't forgive people who have done wrong, and he got a harsh sentence for it. Some people said he wasn't being honest about his past and was hiding things that were now becoming public. Some people looked out for him by telling him that only people in the marriage know what's really going on. Things that shocked people about the split slowly gave way to the question that everyone wants to know: what will happen next? Would Joni get married once more? Could Doug quit his job as a police officer? Would either of them ever talk about why they broke up? That was the end of that part of their lives, and millions of people would be watching. It was too early to say what would happen next. The uproar in court: will Doug Weiss go to jail? Several people said that Doug Weiss might be in serious legal trouble after the split. This is the kind of trouble that could get him jailed. That at first seemed like just another crazy plot idea that people in talk shows and on social media were making up. Thoughts from people who knew what was going on spread, making it clear that something was going on behind the scenes. The first sign that something was wrong was when other people stopped seeing Doug. He had been very open about being a counselor for years, often giving talks at conferences and being on Christian TV. Then all of a sudden, he wouldn't say anything. He stopped sharing as much on social media, and events he had agreed to were either canceled or moved in a strange way. Because of this, the whispers were getting stronger. Was he trying to hide something? Then a story from someone close to Doug said that he was being looked into for stealing money from his coaching business. Some people told me that the issues were found with the way he ran his business, which is what made the courts look into it. A few people said that he had fought with past customers, and some of them said they had even sued him. Christian people were shocked by the idea that Doug might be in trouble with the law, even though he hadn't been charged yet. Things turned out the way Joni Lamb never thought they would. Now she had to watch as her ex-husband's name was linked to a possible court scandal. The truth of her second failed marriage was already painful for her. Her close friends and family say she was shocked. She had built her life on faith, being honest, and the thought that she was following God's plan for her. She was ready to question everything now, though. Had someone told her a lie? Had she believed someone who wasn't who they said they were? It made her sick to think about it. Joni had always been careful with Daystar's image because she knew how quickly a scandal could ruin the network she and Marcus had built. She knew that since Doug was in trouble with the law, some of that attention could be on her too, even though she hadn't done anything wrong. In the news, there were already reports about how much Joni knew before they broke up. Had she learned something that made her leave Doug before things went badly? Had someone warned her to stay away from him, to keep Daystar safe? All the questions that kept coming up got stuck in her head. At the same time, Doug's situation was getting worse. Lawyers tried to guess what would happen next. His businesses could be looked into, which could lead to charges if he did something wrong with his money. If he broke any rules about not sharing client information or not being honest with money, bad things could happen. Some news stories even said that claims against him were backed up by reports from people who used to work with or for him. Doug, for his part, said that nothing was true. People who knew him well said he was mad about the claims and insisted that they were not fair. He thought that some people were trying to make him look bad by making more trouble out of the problems his split had caused. For decades, he had worked hard to build a good name for himself as a Christian counselor. Now everything was in danger. Anyone who was accused of doing something wrong, even if there was no proof, would often lose their job because of it. Doug's friends stood by him and said the accusations were just a plan to make him look bad. They believed that people in the business who didn't like him were using the split to make him look bad. Not everyone was sure, though. Some people who had been watching him for a long time began to think there might be more to the story. After all, these stories didn't come from just one place. Somebody sent in more than one report, and they all said that something was wrong. Over the weeks, the worry kept getting worse. Even though no charges had been filed yet, the rumors about them were bad for Doug's image. Churches would ask him to talk, but he would refuse. They wanted to see what would happen before getting involved with him again in a way that had never been done before. Christian media talked about him as someone who might be involved in a scandal, not as someone who was a respected leader. In this case, things got even worse for Joni. The whole group was now looking to her for help and waiting for her to say something about the court reports. But what could she say? She had already said how painful the breakup was, but this was even worse. A lot of people said she was told to be quiet to protect herself. And daystar, some people said she was still thinking about everything and trying to figure out how quickly things went so badly wrong. Think about what would happen to Joni if Doug really did do something bad. Do people believe she is a victim, or that she made a mistake by marrying him? What if he wasn't guilty too? Could she ever fix what she had done? People kept asking these questions while the issue wasn't fixed. What would happen next was hard to say for sure, but one thing was clear. This court storm was not over yet, and it could make everything different. People were very interested in Joni Lamb's story when she said she was going to marry Doug Weiss. After the sad death of her first husband, she was beginning a new part of her life that was based on her faith and service. It was almost like God had planned the story. Over time, though, the fairy tale started to fall apart. People at first thought it was a story about love and healing, but it quickly turned into a scandalous mess of whispers and talk. A long time before they broke up, it was said that Joni and Doug's marriage wasn't as strong as it seemed. It didn't seem like much at first. A lot of people noticed that Doug and Joni weren't showing up as often as they usually did. Before, they were seen at public events together, but now they only show up alone. Their relationship wasn't talked about as much on social media when they were together. Instead, people shared cute pictures and good times. People first thought it was because they were too busy. Doug had to do his job as a counselor, and Joni had to run Daystar. Over time, though, it became harder to ignore the fact that something wasn't right. One of the first lies to come out was that Joni's kids had never really liked the marriage. Some family members say there was stress from the start. People said Joni was eager to move on and be happy again, but her kids were more careful. Their parents had built a life together, and they thought Marcus Lamb was the best person in the world. Some people who knew the family well even said that Joni's choice to get married again so soon after Marcus's death had made things difficult in the family. It was said that fighting had taken place behind closed doors. Behind closed doors, the family always looked like a unit, but the splits were clear. Then it was said that Doug Weiss had his own secrets before they got married, which made things even stranger. Folks used to believe Doug was a good teacher, but then some started to question him after learning about his past. Some of the things he said about his job, his past relationships, and even his money were called into question. Some people thought Joni might have missed signs of trouble because she was so excited to begin a new phase of her life. Some people thought she trusted someone too much when he wasn't what he seemed to be. People said that Joni and Doug had a big fight about what their jobs were in public and on the side. Everyone talked a lot about this incident. But Doug was used to running his own church with little help from outsiders, while Joni had worked with Daystar for decades to build her kingdom. Some people said Doug wanted a bigger job at Daystar, but Joni wasn't sure. Different people have different stories about Doug's desire for more power in making choices. Some say that Joni felt like she had to fit Doug into a system that was already in place before he arrived. They were said to have fought a lot behind closed doors because they had different ideas about how to lead, do service, and balance work and personal life. Then the last and worst story got around. Joni had learned something about Doug that made her want to end the marriage. Someone thought it had something to do with his court issues, while someone else thought it had more to do with his personal life. There were a lot of ideas, like cheating with money or breaking trust, but no clear answers. One thing that everyone knew for sure was that Joni had left the marriage and would not be going back. Of course, everything in the news had a reason. Some news sites portrayed Joni as a woman who was hurt and shocked by being lied to. Some people said she got married too quickly and now has to deal with the consequences. There were even people who said it was all just for attention and that neither person really cared about the relationship.